Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to Featured Pros Live. Thank you all for joining us today. And we're sorry we couldn't get together last week, but one of our presenters had an unscheduled thing that he had to attend to. So he's actually going to be joining us again next week. Before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded, and my associate Ryan will be sending out the recording tomorrow, so you'll be able to revisit anything you want or share it with colleagues who couldn't attend live. So we encourage your questions throughout the session. So please drop them directly into the chat, and we'll be keeping an eye on that and responding as we go with some time set aside at the end for Q&A as well. On the Lit software side, I'm Hillary Hames, Vice President of Enterprise Relationships. I work closely with our law firm partners, in-house counsel, and government entities as they evaluate and adopt our software, making sure the buying process is smooth and, more importantly, that trial teams actually get better outcomes once they're up and running in our software. I'm joined by Andrea Burton, our Chief Customer Officer. Andrea leads customer success, oversees education and training, and manages enterprise onboarding. And she also works closely with our product team to ensure that Lit Suite reflects how litigation really works in the real world. And of course, as always, Tara Cheever, our co-founder, she'll be monitoring the chat and taking questions as they come in. So today we're really excited to be joined by one of our loyal customers, Chuck Slane, partner at TSR Injury Law in Minnesota. Chuck Slane's path to becoming a trial lawyer wasn't carefully mapped out. It started with a high school guidance counselor suggesting he try working as a paralegal. And that advice led to an internship with a personal injury attorney who encouraged him to pursue law school, and the rest is history. Today, Chuck not only advocates for his clients, but he also mentors the next generation of trial lawyers through the Minnesota Association for Justice's Trial College. He's known for his empathy and his client-first approach. Chuck brings both skill and compassion to every case he takes on. And he's also known for being exceptionally well prepared and analytical. And that's where Lit Suite enters the story. So today's going to be mostly conversation, though I think Chuck plans on showing his screen and sharing a few of his tricks. But let's go ahead and take a deep dive into how Chuck builds cases using Lit Suite from deposition to settlement. Hey, Chuck, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How you doing today?
Doing well, thank you. Before we dig into the technology, let's start with your mindset. So you began your career as a paralegal. How did that shape the way you practice law today?
I think it makes you more detail oriented and understanding the how things work and what you got to do to get there. So when I started as a paralegal, I was also kind of an investigator too. So I think naturally creates that curiosity to kind of keep looking behind the curtain and seeing what's going on.
And what did working as a paralegal sort of teach you that a lot of attorneys may not experience super early on in their careers?
Well, of course, first thing is read the medical records and find all those good and bad kernels that are there, and just keep looking at things from different angles until you figure it out.
And is that helping you prepare for depositions today?
Oh, heck yes. It certainly has kind of created that where I'm known as an over preparer, I guess. So.
Well, share a specific example of a case where being overly prepared made a decisive difference.
Uh, have a case, and I'll show you a little video from it later, where my client was getting off a boat and walking up a dock to go to a restaurant. But the owner had kind of made it a little makeshift. They had a gap in the dock, so they basically put like a couple planks over it. And as she walked over it, it bounced. She fell off and dislocated and fractured her ankle and almost lost her foot. It was a really, really bad injury. But the defense said, oh, she was drunk. And I watched her fall off this boat, and it was all her fault. Well, what we were able to do, first of all, is my client's friends took pictures there on the scene, and had the originals on their phone. So we had the data about exactly what time these pictures were taken. And what that helped us do is the place where the witness says he was sitting on his boat watching my client was in the picture. And when you blow it up, he's not there watching. So we could prove that he was just fabricating this entire story. And by doing it through TrialPad on the deposition, we can show these pictures and reveal it in real time and have that dramatic moment in the deposition where everyone's like, this guy's a liar. And then the case is over at that point.
Yeah, so a good and powerful impeachment
Yeah.
capability. Have you ever tried to use TimelinePad uh, to sort of sort out the dates and timestamps on things and tell a story that way?
Yeah, it's most cases there's always timing involved in what happens and understanding the time and how things change and what events cause those changes can really make a difference in how you tell the story. And using TimelinePad just to put in these events and organize them and just get a visual feel for it can make a huge difference in just understanding which events really are the important ones that you want to look at.
Right. So this is how you can basically make the most of your investment in the Lit Suite is by really, utilizing all the technology that's in there to your advantage, including TimelinePad. But let's move into how that preparation that you talked about before translates into deposition strategy, and that's where TranscriptPad fits in.
Yeah.
You said that TranscriptPad became central to your workflow pretty quickly. What problem did it solve for you immediately?
Oh, well, I keep all my depositions. So they're all sitting on my iPad. And, I mean, I might just have this thing with me all the time. And if I'm sitting in a waiting room somewhere, I got a minute to read a deposition or go through it, pull out quotes. One thing that is super useful is the impeachment slides.
Hmm.
So I find myself going through the deposition and taking those key quotes and making these impeachment slides, which I can then incorporate into other exhibits or use them on their own as standalone. And that's extremely useful. The other thing about just having your transcripts with you all the time is it's easy to then go back and look at the transcripts, not from even the eye of preparing that case, but from the eye of how can I do depositions better in the future and seeing what sort of questioning works and what sort of questioning doesn't, and being able to adjust that for the next time that you do it. It's really helpful for that.
And when you're on your way to a deposition, have you ever taken a listen to transcripts on your iPhone via CarPlay? Have you ever
Yeah.
downloaded those apps to your iPhone and been able to review transcripts to prepare?
Yeah, I did that just recently, kind of out of curiosity when that came down. And then that's exactly what I end up doing is just putting it on in the phone as I'm driving and listen to it. And it can get you prepared for what you're going to do.
Fantastic. Well, you recently mentioned revisiting a punitive damages deposition before a similar one. Can you walk us through what that looked like?
Yeah, that was a case where the gentleman he's approaching a red light. The witness behind him says the light turns yellow, it turns red, it's red for 5 to 8 seconds as he just motors right through the intersection and smashes into my client. Well, what we learned during the deposition is he was messing with his phone, in his words, the entire time. And so by going through and using that transcript to create a motion for punitive damages, we were able to really just take his own words and build the brief around that. So, I mean, one thing that's very useful in TrialPad too is you can just highlight the sections you want, push the little export button, and boom, you got your quote to just stick right in your brief. And very, very useful tool.
We had one question enter the chat from an audience member. What are some common issue codes that you use in your cases? I realize every case is different, but are there any repeat issue codes that you use?
It's an interesting question because I really haven't gotten into a habit of repeating issue codes. I kind of have just created the issues of what I think the issues in my particular case are. But it does make you think about the language you want to use to talk about the issues. So every time I'm creating a code, it makes me stop and think is that the label I want to put on this? Or is there a better way to talk about it? And so it becomes really a way to, for me anyways, to just refine the language that I'm going to use in the case.
So let's go and move forward to video sync and talk about how you're synchronizing your own depositions and the process for that. So before you did that on your own in the tool, what did that look like in terms of going back and forth with a vendor? What
Yeah.
did it cost? And what does it look like today?
Uh, it was really hard to do before you created that tool because just the process of syncing the deposition to the video was always a nightmare. It was always be a little bit wrong. You wouldn't get it on time, and it would be so hard to do that you'd end up just abandoning that part of the project. But now it's so easy. And especially because there's so many depositions that are done on Zoom, you can just hit the record button, download that video, and then once you get your transcript back, you put them both in the iPad, hit the sync button, and boom, it's done. And now all I have to do is go through the transcript, select out what I want, and then look at the video. And maybe I have to fine tune the beginning and the end. But frankly, I found I don't even really have to. It's so accurate that that isn't a real common problem at all anymore.
That's very powerful. Yeah, I always tell our customers, if you're just using TrialPad, you're missing the point. The platform, the ROI really comes from TranscriptPad and that ability because I think core reporters typically charge between 90 and $150 per video hour for that service.
Yeah,
And going back and forth to make changes takes a lot of time.
it
Um,
does.
yeah, can you share a time when sending defense counsel a video clip like sort of shifted the leverage in the settlement negotiations?
I can. What one thing that I do, there was a book called Depositions Are Trial. And that really inspired me to start thinking about when you have these videos and you're going to do something, what are you going to do with it? Because the truth is, we don't get to trial as often as we used to. So how can we use these tools in other ways? So a lot of times now what I will do is I'll take these video clips and incorporate them into sort of a mediation video that I'll send to the insurance carrier before we mediate a case. And I have a clip from one that I can show you.
Yeah, go ahead. That'd be great.
So that case that I was talking about before, where this is the gentleman who claimed he was sitting on his boat watching my client walk off the dock. And so this is just a very short clip from his deposition that became part of this overall presentation. I'll just play this for you.
Correct. You trying to defraud your insurance company
Yes.
and you got caught.
Yeah.
So very simple clip, but it's the beauty of Zoom depositions and the ability to take that video and use it later. People don't take the depositions seriously when they do them on Zoom. This guy's literally standing on his boat on a beautiful sunny day. And just prior to this clip, he had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth as he was talking to me. And as you can see, he just continually shoots himself in the foot throughout the video. And so able to take that and show it to the insurance carrier of this is the guy you're going to put on the stand to try and justify your liability defense. The case settled for policy limits pretty quickly at that point.
Wow, that's unbelievable. That leads us naturally into presentation. So, sort of controlling what people see and when they see it and how they see it. You've said that TrialPad gives you control, especially compared to handing an expert a binder. What do you mean by that?
Well, part of the persuasion process is to control where people keep their attention so that their mind isn't wandering and thinking about lunch or something else. You want them focused on that persuasive point that you're about to make. And so by using TrialPad and presenting that piece of evidence and then the tools within TrialPad to direct attention, I found it to be just very effective.
Can you tell us about a Zoom deposition where controlling the screen really changed the dynamic?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about this case and then I'll show you an exhibit that we used during it. It was a simple car versus pedestrian where a young man is leaving work and going to his girlfriend's house and he's not really paying attention. So as he makes a turn, he doesn't look where he's supposed to, and he doesn't see that there's a family with young children stepping into the road as he's making the turn. And I'll show you now how we ended up using this exhibit to prove that point. So right now, I'm using my iPad and connecting to the Zoom. And this is exactly how it works during Zoom depositions. This exhibit, as you can see, is just a very simple hand drawing of the diagram. And this tool here is the laser. So you can draw on the screen, and if I hold my pen down, it'll stay there. If I lift my pen, it will go away. So what you're able to do now with this exhibit, and this is being recorded, so you have it on a video, is you can simply direct the attention and say, the defendant is here, and he's going to make this turn. But we all know that when you're making a turn, the important thing is where you're looking. You have to be looking at the area where you're turning. Well, the defendant didn't, because he had noticed there's a man walking a dog on the sidewalk. And he said, I really like that dog. So as he's turning, this is where his field of vision is. So he has no idea that this young family is stepping into the street, and he makes contact with them and drags them down the road. And in fact, after the crash, the vehicle comes to a stop, and you can see the scratches on the pavement that are left from my client's bicycle being dragged under his vehicle as he continues down the road. And you might ask, what's this? That's one of my client's dreadlocks that was ripped out of his head as he's being dragged down the road.
Good grief. Well, I absolutely love this. You were actually the attorney who came up with this idea and suggested it. That momentary emphasis is definitely more powerful than a permanent annotation in this case. What is one presentation mistake you see attorneys make repeatedly, and how can they fix it?
The main mistake I think that people make is just not directing attention. So a lot of times when we're working with exhibits, we'll end up talking into our notebook or not looking at the exhibit while we're talking about it. And as a result, that the jury or the judge or whoever you're trying to communicate with is looking in the wrong place. And now they're not following what you want them to follow. It's one of the most fundamental communication issues that is easy to fix, but you have to be aware of it.
So let's talk about the full ecosystem, and you're working from everywhere as we all are. And your iPad seems to be your the central device to your practice. When did that shift actually occur? Was it during COVID or something else?
Um, I don't know, it's been so long for me that I don't really remember when I started anymore, but I started using TrialPad, I think, when it first came out. And really, TranscriptPad was my first entry into it and started using it. And I still am at the point where sometimes I pull up a transcript and it says, "Oh, this is an old one. You got to update it to the new version." And I know, oh, it's keeping things for a long time.
You've mentioned using those 10-minute windows. How significant is that over the life of a case?
Well, it's huge. The other thing that it really does is there are those times where you have a thought just out of the blue and you want to try and capture it and make sure it doesn't get away from you. And so when you have all your materials right there, you can always just pull it out, take a look at it, and jot yourself a note about it so that you have it for later down the road.
Question from the audience. Tell us about your tech stack, specifically which tools, which hardware do you bring with you to hearings, to depositions, and to a jury trial, and how much lift is the setup?
Great question. And it depends a lot. If I'm doing depositions, I'm literally just sitting in front of my desktop with my desktop computer and my iPad and a camera and a mic. And that's it. And so I don't really need to have any other setup. When you're going into the courtroom, it gets to be more of a wild card because you never know what you're going to see when you get into the courtroom. What does the court have available for you? Do you have to bring your own screen and projector? Can you hook into their system? One thing that I learned right away is that you got to get that universal Apple connector with the multiple ports, because then you're prepared for when you get there and you can plug into the court system. So I have, I think, two or three of those in my bag at any given time.
So yeah, definitely bring along a backup. And have you ever had any troubles that required troubleshooting by an IT person, or are all of these things something that you've been able to handle yourself and come back from yourself on your own?
Pretty much able to handle it. As time goes on, the connection issue becomes so much easier. And really, if you can connect it through an Apple TV now, and it's just a lot easier to do it that way than to worry about wiring things to make it work that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have one more question. How are you using DocReviewPad to stay organized? We just bought the suite and wanting to know, how do you organize your cases inside of the apps?
Well, one thing that I've started doing here in Minnesota, we have initial disclosures to start the case where you just basically disclose all of your documents all at once. And so what we've gotten in the habit of doing now is when we're ready to serve those initial disclosures, we take that batch of documents, import them into DocReviewPad, bait stamp them, and then you have your base set of documents that you can use throughout the case. And they're already all bait stamped. But then when you go through and organize those documents using that quick review process, you can go through and sort them out and put them into the categories that you find real quickly. And then the other nice part about that is now you can like just find the document you want, export it right to TrialPad, and you got it set up in your witness outline, ready to go.
So we're talking now about discovery and workflows that are done in your offices. And you were once a paralegal yourself. Does your paralegal have their own license for Lit Suite, and how do they sort of fit into your current Lit Suite workflow?
She doesn't yet. She's not the same techie that I am in doing that, and sometimes I have difficulty giving up tasks given my paralegal background, so I end up doing some of that work myself.
Yeah.
Something that I got to work on probably.
Oh no, we all have to work on that. Let me see. I have one more. What's the biggest misconception attorneys have about using iPads in litigation?
That it's hard, and
They
it's
think that their kids, their children, and toddlers have been using iPads for the last 15 years. And even some of the associates I talked to today say they grew up having an iPad. What do you think they mean by that? It's
Uh, it's, I think it's a matter of doing something different than what you've done in the past. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I see lawyers show up at deposition with laptops, and I'm the only one in the room with an iPad. And I'm like, I'm the only one that's got these tools that I can actually do something with the evidence. And everyone else is relying on me to do it for them because they can't off of a laptop generally. And it's, but when you're locked into this is the way I've always done it, it's hard to change. But what I'll tell people is once you get on the iPad and start doing things, you're going to start to figure out a way to do everything on the iPad because it is just so simple and so intuitive that you just want to do it.
Yeah, and we are always here to help out and with training, and Andrea does a fantastic job with our customers and helping them. She'll do deep dives into all the various solutions that we have or help them prepare for trials. So no need to go at it alone. We're always happy to partner up and help you out. Do juries respond differently to digital presentation versus paper, in your opinion? Or let's say foam core boards, static images, that kind of thing?
Both have a place.
Yeah.
But there is kind of the CSI effect with jurors where in today's world, sometimes they expect that technology and that type of a techno presentation. And this does let you give that to them. Because there are times where lawyers are in the courtroom shuffling papers, trying to find something that they want to provide to the jury. And that's such a turnoff because then people see you wasting their time. And when a lawyer has that document or that picture right there available at their fingertips on their laptop and they can just show it in real time, it creates that trust relationship that they know this guy's prepared and he knows what he's talking about. I'm going to listen to this lawyer.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, has a judge ever commented on your digital presentation approach?
Oh yeah. A lot of times the judges afterwards will be like, wow, how long did it take you to figure out how to do that stuff? And just, they have lots of questions about it after the fact. Sometimes it does impress them.
Well, you don't have to tape down wires anymore as well. It's you're mitigating risk for them so that there isn't a trip and fall in the courthouse. Back to pretrial, how do you decide which clips to create for mediation?
It's just an iteration process where I read the transcript and kind of pick out what I want. But then sometimes you look at it on the video and you're like, oh, it's not really what I thought it was for that. But then on the other hand, there are times where the video makes it what it is. And as an example, I had a client who had a cervical disc herniation. And during his deposition, he started to like just demonstrate. And he's like, yeah, it's really fine until I look this way and then I get this shooting pain right down my arm. And the video, you could just see the mechanics of how the injury worked, and it created built-in credibility. So I was like, yep, that's a clip for sure. During the deposition, I kind of made a note like, go back and get that one. And it was as good as I expected it to be.
From the audience, do you have a checklist before a deposition? What is on your checklist?
I actually do. I have what's called a trial prep checklist, actually, is the name of the document. And what I have on it is I've determined basically the main issues that are always going to come up. So you got liability, causation, prior medical history. And then as I'm preparing for the case, I add to it the specific issues that are relevant to this particular case. And what I will do is I will just put in there the evidence that supports or hurts on various issues. And then as I'm going through and talking with the client, we bring it up, talk about it, and show it to them sometimes, and that is how I do it.
Not to put you on the spot, but would you be willing to share that with our listeners, that checklist, if you had some time to sort of redact and scrub and modify? Would you be happy to share it with the audience? I think our last presenter did that, and it was extremely helpful and well received.
Yeah, I could absolutely do that. I keep a folder of forms just for like different preparation things, and I can share that form for sure.
This may or may not have happened in the past, but have you ever gone up against another Lit Suite attorney?
Yes.
What
Uh,
happened?
it's interesting because it's very well known that there's a lawyer. I think he's retired now, so I don't have to worry about saying who it is. But when you get him for trial, you know you're going to have an iPad trial. And so people would get very anxious about that because he is very good at presenting his case through the iPad. And it just is a testament as to why you should also be very good at doing it, because otherwise the other side's going to do it and they're going to be the one that the jury is going to look to and trust.
And have you ever been up against, maybe an insurance carrier or a larger corporation that had a huge dog and pony show? And how do you think the jury perceives this technology versus having a hot seater and all of that?
Uh, I love it when the defense shows up with a huge team. They got paralegals in the background that they ignore and treat like shit in front of the jury. And then it's just little old me sitting at counsel table with my iPad and nothing else. It just feeds right into that David and Goliath story. And there's nothing better at trial than when that happens.
I would absolutely agree with that. Have you ever pondered on, like an efficiency gain or a particular workflow that sort of surprised you when you were using the Lit Suite?
I think really what it is, one of the things that has been very efficient is the key docs
Mhm.
in TrialPad as a way to kind of set up the evidence that you're going to use during an examination of a particular witness. And then you still have all the documents sitting there if you happen to have missed one or realize you need one at the last second. But it just allows you to kind of pre-prepare and have your ammunition lined up, organized witness by witness by witness. And that's really efficient.
And in the same vein, what's a small feature that you rely on daily that most users probably overlook? Anything you can think of?
Yeah, it depends what I'm doing, but I found like when I'm writing briefs, TrialPad to just take the facts and build the factual summary in the brief, super, super helpful. And I think it was you that originally told me when we were talking about that little export button when you just highlight the quote you want and hit the export and boom, it just goes to where you want it, send it to myself in an email and then throw it in a Word doc. Really saves a ton of time when I don't have to sit and type in all the characters of the quote. I can just import it right in.
What about copy and paste citations?
Yep, do that too.
Um, and going back to key docs, I think you mentioned it. What kind of notes do you write for yourself in there?
Uh, very case specific, but usually when you're using an exhibit, there might be something about it that you want to be careful about. And so you can write yourself a note there to like remind yourself, don't focus in on this area of it, or just there's usually some limitations or benefits that you want to remind yourself of in the moment.
And how much time or money do you think you've saved using TranscriptPad? This is a question from the audience who obviously is vetting TranscriptPad against possibly a third-party vendor. Any ideas?
Absolutely invaluable. I've never sat
Okay.
down to add it up, but it's a game changer for sure.
Well, you paid $600 for the suite for 1 year, so I assume that it paid for itself in the first case.
So
Safe to say.
no question about it.
All right, let me see if there are any more questions in that chat. Let's see. I think that's it from the audience today. And Chuck, I really appreciate you for all of your insights and your time and your agreeability to hand over that checklist. We'll really appreciate that. And we will share it with our participants when you have it over to us.
Okay, thank you much.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for today. Join us next week and please look out for that recording and the link to our YouTube site where you can take a look at previous recordings and clips and share them with your peers. Thanks and have a wonderful day, everyone.